All right, so a quick little tutorial segment. I'm literally gonna have a little 10-minute timer for this for Mary. Oh, well, thank you, Cellbox. Thank you. Yeah, that certainly helps, yeah. All right, so quick little tutorial about, in particular, we're going to talk about, how to extend into improvisation a little bit, basically, and what kind of things you need in order to improvise effectively on guitar. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, we got to start with a couple of really basic concepts. So let's have a look. What kind of scales are the most essential to start with? Because in my personal experience, let me just have a little close-up for you for this moment. Yeah, guitar suddenly changes color, get used to it. This is just what happens with these cameras. It's hilarious. But anyway, so the first scale, of course, that everybody has to learn, and I think should not be underestimated for improvisation and for just about any kind of guitar playing, is, of course, the good old friend of every guitar player on the planet, the minor pentatonic, of course. Of course. You gotta be really fluent with this. Like, funny enough, before you move to anything else, before you move into modes, into major scale, minor scale, whatever else, just get the minor pentatonic under your fingers. Because one of the advantages of knowing it, besides, just being able to play just about over any rock song, any blues song, because most of them will be able to just utilize that box. It's just how it is. It also has the advantage of, if you learn all 5 positions of this, which, by the way, is quite pentatonic neutral. Oh my god. First scale I learned, I don't even remember. Yes, exactly, to me as well. Literally, the A minor pentatonic was the very first one. So, as I was gonna say, there are 5 positions to it, basically. So first step you gotta take, if you're really keen on improvising and starting with getting those ideas in your head onto the fretboard, start by learning the 5 positions of the scale. So, starting with... let's just start on the one that I consider to be the first position. People will argue about this, but I believe this is literally the one I just played as the first one. Okay, so you already know this. I'm just gonna quickly run through them for people who haven't seen them before, maybe. So that's the, that's kind of like that. I consider this to be the 5th one, then this is the first one. Then the 2nd. The 3rd. And the 4th. Oh god. Yeah, there we go. And then again back to the 5th. And they're all the same notes. That's something you need to understand before you get a little bit confused by how this works. It's always the same 5 notes. In the case of A minor pentatonic, we have our A, C, A, C, D, E, and then G. That's all. And it's all the same 5 notes, just in different combinations, essentially. So here it just starts on the G, and then goes through that same pattern. Then it starts on the A, and then on the C. You get the idea. And another advantage of knowing these 5 positions, which I feel like people sometimes miss to realize, you're also simultaneously learning the major pentatonic positions. It's not just the minor pentatonic. Now, how does that work? Basically, if you simply start your A minor pentatonic on the note C, that becomes a C major pentatonic. It's that simple. It's that simple. The position is identical. So basically, instead of just going, there's your A minor, just start on the C. And that's your C major pentatonic. Well, basically, it's basically how it is. It's really much easier to approach it this way because people start getting into the weeds with this a little bit. And I feel like just for usability, for just being able to play and realize, oh, okay, I can just switch to this kind of major sound with the same positions without having to learn new positions and think of it differently. Because to my mind, one of the essential skills as a guitar player and as an improviser especially is to be able to optimize these things in your head. Because you can look at them all as completely disparate, separate chunks of information that you kind of dynamically combine as it's happening. But to my mind, it's better to always have a common anchor point, if that makes sense. Because if you're thinking, oh, okay, so I have the 5 minor pentatonic positions starting here, then I have the 5 major ones, but it starts on this position, so this is the first position of the major pentatonic, this is the second. I just think that's confusing. That's just more information for you to process, and as you're in the moment, as you're playing, you really don't want to be thinking about that stuff. You just want to know them and be able to use them. And so the more simple you can make it in your head, the better. Seriously, just so much better. So there we go. So this is the first step, I would say. If you already have your 5 positions down, and now that you know they're also the major positions, the logic kind of applies to the minor scale as well, which is something we're going to continue pretty much with right now. So, Mary, how good are you with the minor and major scale positions? I'm just gonna ask. Because there is, as far as I'm concerned, and this is just the approach I like to take, because I'm not very much of a caged kind of guy, I prefer the 3-note per string positions. So are you familiar with those, just as a question? And of course, combining pentatonic positions is also really great, like major and minor pentatonic. There's a great example of this solo that I always send people to. It's the solo of You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC. It's a real masterclass in combining major and minor pentatonic in the same solo. It's really fun. Listen to it, try learning it if you want. Yeah, Caged, I also found it very, very confusing. Oh, 5 positions of the major, not so much minors. Okay. So let me try to dispel a couple of misconceptions there. So with the major scale, when you're talking about the 5 positions, I'm assuming you're talking about, like, let's say C major, you go like, and then maybe you go here, and then maybe that kind of thing, right? Just starting on a different root of C major. Is that basically how you've been taught? Yeah, and you see you guys are saying majors have always been harder, so check this out. The approach that I like to take is a little bit different, a little bit more optimized. So, Mary, am I correct in assuming? Okay, there we go. So here is something that I think you guys are gonna find very useful, as I did, because my guitar teacher in the very beginning, because I only took guitar lessons for like 6 months in the very beginning, and then 20 years of my own learning. He also gave me this chart with basically just exactly like this. So C major starting on the low E, right? Then C major starting on the A string, then C major on the D, then even on the G string. It's like, okay, yeah, great, fantastic. But I immediately took that chart and I realized, well, okay, hang on. C major is just, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? Why don't I fill up the entire fretboard with those notes and see what positions we will come up with? And guess what? This is basically what happens. You have 7 scale positions, and I'm not gonna call them minor or major scale positions. They are just the scale positions that will work in that key. And if that doesn't make sense yet, let me explain. So starting on C major, we're gonna stick with the exact same shape that you already know how to do, Mary, in this case. So this one, which is just starting on the note C, right? So let's try to extend it. That's the entire, all 6 strings covered basically right there. So I'll just play it a little bit slower for you. And you can add the D note if you want. We're not gonna call this the first position because in fact, to my mind, the first position is gonna be this. So still starting on the C, but look what I'm gonna do. It's a really good position, by the way, really symmetrical, something you should definitely know. So have a look. So it's like this. You can see it's like C, D, and E. Then you have your G, A. F, G, A. That's the entire scale position right there. I'm just gonna call it out by frets because I think it's easier for people to do it this way. So you have your 8th fret, 10th fret, and 12th fret. Same on the A string. 8th fret, 10th fret, and 12th. Then we have 9, 10, and 12 on the D. Then we have 9, 10, and 12 on the G. Very simple. And then we just shift it up 1 finger and it becomes 10, 12, and 13 on the B. And then again 10, 12, and 13 on the E. This is pretty much your first scale position. Just look at it this way. Yeah, there you go. Exactly, Mary. Yes. Covering all the strings, not just the half. Exactly. And so have a look. So if you consider this to be your first position, have you encountered this position before, by the way? Just that's a very common kind of a shreddy position for people because it's super symmetrical. You can see that on the 2 low strings, it's the same pattern. Then on the middle strings, it's also the same pattern. And on the high strings also, so it's kind of like very symmetrical. Very convenient C major scale position. Oh, and also Cellbox is saying that's how I learned, but I learned minor first and it was different scales and it was hard for major. Yeah, so check this out again. I'm getting to it gradually. So are you guys familiar with this shape? I'm just asking here to see if we can proceed further. So this kind of a symmetrical C major shape. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. Yeah, we can definitely. I should also provide you guys with a chart for it later, basically. But yeah, the idea is when you know this position, this one that I just showed you, you can extend it to the entire fretboard, and by that I mean just make sure you have all the same notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B across the entire fretboard. And when you do this, let me just show you. You don't have to follow it yet. I'll just show you the 7 positions and how I like to think about it. So if we're gonna start on C major, so this will be your first position. Then the next position will start on the note D, so on the 2nd note. And you see, it's all the same notes. Don't forget, there's nothing crazy about it. It's all the same notes, just starting on a different starting note, really. Then the next one starting on E. The next one after that starting on F, which I'll do here because it's a bit easier. Then starting on G. And finally starting on A. And also technically there is one more that starts on B right here. Which, by the way, as you can see, Mary, is the same one that you know, just starting on B. So it's kind of like, except you start on the note B. Okay, and you see that covers the entire fretboard. And now, yeah, let me get to that piece of knowledge that I feel like a lot of people miss to realize, and they complicate their lives by not doing it. So these positions here, these positions that I showed you, they cover the entire gamut of both A minor and C major. How do they do that? You see C major as a scale. C major as a scale has the exact same notes as A minor. Sounds a little bit weird at first, but that's literally how it works. If you start your C major scale on the 6th note, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. You start on the 6th note and just keep going up. It becomes your A minor scale. The concept you really need to know that we're finally arriving at is relative minor, that's the one. So there is, just look it up, it just says relative minor scale, so just write, yeah, relative minor scale, chart of relative minor scales, list of relative minor scales, whatever. Yeah, A is natural minor, that's right, exactly. But every single scale that you will encounter will have its own natural minor. So for instance, if you have, let's say, I don't know, E major, and its natural minor would be C sharp minor or D flat if you want. And you see what I'm getting to, right? You don't really need to think of it as separate minor or major scale positions. You just need to know the 7 scale positions that correspond to each of the notes of the major scale, because there's only 7 notes. And each one of them will give you its own, first of all, its own way to play that scale, depending on the note you start. So if you start, let's say, you have that very first position. Well, I like to think of it as the first because the first on the fretboard. You know, in C major, it's not really the first, but it's basically C major starting on F right here. And you simply play like the note C at the end. Well, check it out. I'm just gonna play, let's say, these couple of notes. And I end on the C, right? So it sounds major when I do it like that, doesn't it? It sounds kind of major. And then if I decide to end that same kind of scale run on the A, ooh, suddenly it sounds minor. Same notes. I played the same notes. If I decide to end it, I'm gonna get a little bit more advanced for a second. If I decide to end it, let's say, on the F instead. Ooh, what is that spicy sound? And that would be F Lydian. So we're not gonna get into modes yet, but the point is, you need to learn these 7 scale positions. So just look them up. They're called 3 note per string scale positions for guitar, 3 notes per string. Don't worry about the modes yet. All you need to know is to learn these 7 scale positions, each of them starting on the corresponding note of the major scale, and realize that the moment you have that, you also have the 7 minor scale positions. You also have the 7 Lydian, Mixolydian, Dorian, Phrygian. You have all of them. You have all of them. You just need to learn to look at it from the starting note. That's the concept I'm trying to emphasize on here. The only thing that you really need to understand is if you end, you're playing in this scale position here. You end on the C, suddenly you're in C major. You end on the A, you're in A minor. You decide to do it in G, then it's going to be G Mixolydian. So you see, it's all within those 7 positions, really. I understand there's far more to it. There's a lot more to it. But this is the really easy shortcut for you to just know, oh, okay, let's say we have something that sounds kind of, sounds minor. The song is sounding minor. I want to play in minor. Let's say the song is in A minor, and I know the C major scale position. You can use it. So again, the essential toolkit in this case would be knowing your relative major and minor scales, just look that up as well, relative major and minor scales, the 3 notes per string scale positions for the guitar, and understanding that depending on the note you start those positions on, this is going to be your tonal center, essentially. So there you go. This is the approach in about 15 minutes. I just covered the basics for you here. This is how I like to look at it.